All right, guys.
Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to this week's Town Hall for Rebuild California. I want to start off with some really good news. They're not taxing us per word, because if they were, Orrin, you probably couldn't afford to have me on the show.
Absolutely right, Mike.
I do want to start off with some statistics here. And I want to thank Tim, because the video he put together tonight, a lot of it may seem like old news, but it got me to thinking. And for those of you who know, it doesn't take much. Let's talk a little bit about that Proposition 47. Orrin's favorite one that passed. We all know about 47. We saw it earlier. But what I found fascinating is I looked up when Proposition 47 passed. And I want to put this in perspective to show you how important is what we're doing at Rebuild and what Sonia Green, our guest, is going to talk about tonight. Orrin, did you know that Proposition 47 in 2014 passed, yes, by 59%, but hold that thought, only 4,238,000 people and change voted yes, 2.8 million no. That year in 2014, we had a 42% of eligible voter turnout and of registered voter turnout, and a 30% of all possible voters. The reality is, we talk about things passing in California in percentages. And I've been looking at a lot of statistics lately, because that's kind of what I do in my spare time. And I called somebody smarter than me, which is most people, Larry Gersten. I said, is it my illusion that on these downstream races, which we're going to talk about tonight, I'm not seeing the vote setup? He goes, absolutely, it's true. And there's a lot of studies go on it. So a lot of these things we're talking about have been passed on, kind of like the recall, because people didn't come out to vote. That's your cue.
Yeah, I was muted because the dogs are barking in the background, but you're absolutely right.
Well, at least they're using their voice.
4 million people chose the fate of our state. And as we watched the prison systems and the jails, the population decrease, we were able to see a dramatic increase proportionately in the homeless population. It's these do-good liberal policies that are driving our state into the gutter. Out of the Golden State, welcome the gutter state. And you know, you heard, I forget the guy's name, but he said, you know, oh, we're going to be able to put this money, you know, towards focusing it on the real crimes, the other crimes, the violent crimes. And, you know, well, forget that. You're taking these people from a secure environment where they have access to food, clothing, water, education, rehabilitation services, counseling services, and a secure environment where they can focus on nothing but getting clean, staying healthy, and getting an education, or finding the Lord, as many do in custody. And, you know, a lot of them find their way out of the hole. But with Kamala Harris's Safe Neighborhoods Act, we have actually gotten the flip side of what they had intended to do. And my grandmother was the first to tell me, to share with me, that the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And you know, with Gavin Newsom at the helm and the Democrats, you know, steering the state, that's where we're all headed, folks.
Yeah, and it's scary to me that and you know, what's interesting, because we could say, well, this is a historic trend. And again, I asked Larry tonight, he says it's actually, because we talk a lot about people, why they vote, why they don't vote. We talk a lot about election fraud. And Sonia, you and I talked ahead of the show, so you know what I'm getting to.
And let's segue into introducing our lovely guest.
I will one second, but I want to bring up one statistic here. Proposition 13 in 1978, because it fired up people because it concerned them. Most people don't think about prisoners. We had a 70% turnout that year. And so the reason I'm transitioning to Sonia in this way is Sonia and I had a meeting earlier this week talking about what she can do for various candidates. That's, I think, I can't stress more that what we're doing at Rebuild and what Sonia is doing, we have to generate excitement. So in the Cox Newsom election, just no excitement. People don't show up. Proposition 47, safe neighborhoods, they don't understand it because of the way it's titled, they don't show up. It's important that people show up, and some of the work Sonia is doing right now, working with all kinds of candidates so they have a voice in this next cycle, and we'll get to the end and Rebuild, is really critical. And I wanted to make sure to get that in, Sonia, before introducing you. We've been to your Patriots for Freedom. We've seen the 350 people. We've seen the excitement which is generated there, and we need to keep that epicenter going both on the state level and at the local level so people vote.
Absolutely.
So
That's the most important thing. Yeah. So what I've been able to concentrate on is definitely finding candidates that are and they've always been out there, but the problem is that they don't really have any support. They didn't have any backing, and they didn't have anyone to feel like that they could connect with as far as even leadership. So I stepped out and I decided, you know what, I need to build something here, which is a part of the community. I'm working for the community, and I like to say that it's all of us involved. But I'm coming out and I want to find these candidates. So I search and vet them and have a conversation, let them know what I'm about, my fundamental values, and what we're looking for as far as candidates. And I think what that does for a lot of people is they're like, wow, we really do matter. The community matters. They are paying attention to us. It's not just somebody that maybe a certain type of organization that was believed to be a leader for a very long time and actually failed in every level. They weren't really leading because they were only picking people that whatever reason they needed to pick them for, rather be their friends or just other things. They were literally negating real candidates with real solutions, and that motivation, and not somebody that's just getting in there to try and hold a title. They're getting in there to do the right thing. And I've met so many people, and every time I meet someone else, I'm just like, wow. So, I think voters are going to be really excited. And I know that voters have a lot of concern with our elections and things like that. Pages for Freedom doesn't stop just with the candidates. We don't stop with just getting them elected, and we don't stop just when we get in there and they are sitting in their seat. We continue to work with these candidates. We are not going to leave them, and they're going to be a voice for the community. They're going to always be heard. So this is going to be a really designed program from start to finish. And one of the things that I tell my candidates, which I like to call soldiers actually, is that, I'm here to secure your win. And with that, I want to also capitalize on that. Again, we're concentrating on every issue that our voters are concerned with. What their concerns are equally are my concerns and the team that I'm with. So we're not negating that. We're not going to cross it off that those concerns are not real. We are attacking them. And I can guarantee you, I'm not going to be able to, tell you exactly what we're doing, but it'll be a blitz. So I believe in attacking everything at once. And that's what I'm going to do. And I think they're going to see a big difference. The movement is growing, and we're going to be developing some other new things. Chapters are developing as well. We're going to be having these events. I encourage people to come out because we're going to have a rocking good time. And I'll tell you one thing, voters are going to come out there. And I'm going to tell you, voters, vote, vote, vote. Do not let evil or corruption deter you from doing what's right. Because as long as you continue to do right, regardless what is wrong, right will prevail. But if we don't try, we just give it to them. So don't give anything away.
One of the things we're doing too, Sonia, it's important that we understand what Sonia is doing is we need to get this penetration and talk about a lot of issues that are local too. For instance, when we talk about real estate like SB 9, SB 10, people don't understand what it means in their community and what somebody like a school board member could do about CRT, what a local council person still can do. So as we have the recall boost throughout the state, what we're doing is evolving these tents and pop-ups again. For example, taking Eric Early as Attorney General, and we're encouraging that at these, as we put our initiatives out there to be signed that we decided to support statewide, we want to encourage with Sonia that the local candidates need to get to those individual tents. I preached this during the first recall, why the local candidates need to have somewhere to go. Many of them are trying to get as little as 3,000 votes, and they simply don't know how to get the penetration. And that seems so minor to people, but it's so important because the Democrats have built the damn thing from the ground up. And we're sitting there going, oh my God, there's 1 million votes. I care more about the 300 votes in Huntington Beach or Cerritos sometimes, because that really swings where things are going.
Absolutely. That's another thing, obviously, that I also was concentrating on, because actually about 13 years ago, I had noticed the trend. I said, hey, look, they're coming up from the bottom. So just so you know, right now I've endorsed about 4 or 5 candidates in different areas. I'm building up the local government. We've got people running for school board here out in Orange County. I'm concentrating on all the local cities nearby me. I'm also spreading out as well to San Diego County and Northern California. We've also identified local candidates in those areas as well. So everybody's hitting it. My goal is to get, quite a bit of people. I won't tell the number just yet, but it's going to be fabulous. This is going to be exciting. I need the voters to get involved, and I'm going to keep you abreast of things. Always, feel free to go to my webpage. It's easier to say pffpac.com. Oren loves that. And, keep up with the events, keep up with the candidates that are rolling out. You're going to be pleasantly surprised. It should really motivate all of you to get out and more so get involved. Even if you're a voter and you want to run, contact me. Let's do this. I really cannot encourage you enough. It is your right to get out there and fight. It is your right to fight. So let's do this. Let's get out there. Let's build this army. This is what it is. The infrastructure, and I know a lot of people were hurt, over the recall. Let me just say this. Even if your selected candidate would have gotten in, it really wouldn't have changed much, because of the fact the infrastructure is so rotten. Now we get in there, soldiers, and we do what we need to do. Let's not worry about the voting issues. We're attacking that too. Everyone's awake, everyone's aware. So we get in there and we rebuild this infrastructure. Guess what? It still won't matter who's at the top, because the infrastructure is strong. And we have taken back what we need to take back. So that's what I'm concentrating on. And that infrastructure does start from the bottom up. So that's why it is very heavily concentrated with me in the local areas. And then of course it does start spreading out, but I am very much so concentrating on those areas. Do not be afraid to jump in. Listen, you got it. You love this country. You love the Constitution. You love what we stand for. You have fundamental values. And let me tell you something. It could go across party lines. As long as you're about the freedoms and the liberties, and you understand, the First Amendment and Second Amendment and all the other things, hey, we can all get along. Why can we all just get along? We can.
Oren, were you going to say something? Okay, I want to throw in something interesting here, or really important. I think people lose sight of the fact that I was at a meeting Friday night with a bunch of local folks, shall we say. And I think people forget, because we talk so much about the shiny object, which I've talked so much about national politics. In California, people like to run for Congress. And the reason they like to run for Congress is because you don't have to live anywhere to run a specific California congressional seat. Most seats, you have to live in that district. And there's many seats you don't know about. And frankly, some of them that don't pay are pretty easy to get. There's water boards, there's town councils, but you have to live in the precincts in those districts. So when you're thinking someone else is going to do it, just like Oren and I did when we started the recall, right? You may live in an area where you can serve on a board, an advisory board of some kind. where there's only 1,000 people, there might be 10 people on that advisory board in a sub town of 10,000. You've got to look it up, look up your town, look up positions available. So, do you have any advice on that? Even how people can Google this stuff? I know that sounds kind of weird, but people don't know about all the positions available. When they look them up, it's this overwhelming list.
Yeah, it can be very overwhelming. And yeah, you just kind of go to your city, you pull it up and look at what the local positions are up. That's what I did when I ran last year. You can see a whole slew of things. It'll tell you what year these positions are coming up. Just kind of peruse through it, it's very easy once you get in there and just navigate through. You can even do in the search menu, pull up open positions, or you can just, type whatever you're actually looking at. Hey, you know what? We even need elected library officials. Okay, that's extremely important. You wouldn't believe what they are allowing into the libraries. We need you in there, right? So every position that you could even think of, if you don't have a lot of time, you pick something else that, again, there's limited time in the school board, and things like that. City council might require a little bit more time. And then we have all these other, like, the water district, things like that, Board of Education. We have so many positions you'd be just absolutely flabbergasted about, and it's exciting. On top of it, get in there, let's get involved. A lot of people say, what are we doing? We're not doing anything. That's not true. We are doing everything, but what happened is there's a lack of leadership to give that direction. People simply sometimes need just that encouragement to say, yeah, you can do that, and we want you to do it, and I'm going to back you in doing it. You met her. I'm that person. So if you need a little encouragement, come and talk to me, baby, because I got you.
There's a lot of seats that go unfilled. There's a lot of positions. There were positions here in Sacramento, one of the larger, metropolitan areas, where the Republican GOP chairs in certain zones went uncontested, went unfilled. So you can get involved in your local committees. And we've all seen just how important the school boards are and how political they can be.
Yeah.
That's where there's a real battleground taking place in our state, in our nation.
Yeah.
It's the fight over our kids' minds, and
that's right.
They're trying to control everything that's spoon fed to our children. And when it comes down to critical race theory and the controversial sexual education curriculum that has been imposed into the schools, that's where Rebuild California comes in, and that's where Mike and I and our team come in. We'd like to help champion school choice initiatives and help push those to the ballot, bring those to the ballot. And they are every bit as important as trying to recall the governor and get him out of office. And water initiatives where we add desalination plants and build reservoirs and infrastructure and things like that. I heard that, the Los Angeles school district they're having to bring bottled water in for the kids because their pipes are contaminated. They don't have the money or the resources to repair that. But if we were to bring a water initiative to ballot, and the state is mandated to allocate a certain portion of the budget to water infrastructure, then we'd be doing something. And I'll tell you what, folks, for those of you that are listening in tonight or into the next week as we go forward, we've all heard of global warming, the pending ice ages. It was, when I was a kid, it was a pending ice age. Okay. We had already crossed the bridge of, we only had 50 more years left of our oil reserves and things like that. And then it changed to global warming, and then it changed to climate change, and then it's extreme weather, incidents or what have you, weather emergencies and things like that. Doesn't matter where you fit, if you're a climate, environmental denier or not, or it doesn't matter. But what does matter is that they have been predicting the doom and gloom of the world for a long time. And, you go back to 1922, there was an article in I think the New York Times in 1922, where they were talking about the shrinking ice sheets and the starving polar bears and things like that. But doesn't matter whether you believe in climate change or not. Fact is that the politicians and the folks that have been pushing this narrative for so long
Right.
have done so little to help protect us from the pending disasters they are predicting. If we're going to be experiencing record drought and historical flooding, then why the hell haven't we put more effort towards building reservoirs to insulate us against the drought, or building, canals and infrastructure to prevent the flooding that they predict is going to happen? Okay, we're going to have record droughts, for the next 5 years or whatever they predict. Great. We'll ration our water again. What have we done since the last drought and to insulate us against this next drought?
Mhm.
And that's what Rebuild California is about. PFF is you guys, we are going to be working hand in glove as we go forward.
Oh, yeah.
And parallel paths to try and, put people in office with common sense solutions to these
Amen.
real world problems that we're facing. And, I'm sorry, but there are some social issues that we're just going to have to put aside that are going to go unanswered for a while, because they have been unsolvable for decades. And we have to address some of these problems right here, right now at home. And
Absolutely.
that
If I can
are facing
interject
us.
something. Oh, go ahead. If I can interject
Good luck on this show.
I wanted to interject something too about these candidates and what has happened. We were talking about the local level and the positions being uncontested. There has been positions where school board people have gotten in off of 50 votes.
Mhm.
One position literally was uncontested, just walked right in. So we really, again, I just wanted to make that preface and really, accentuate how important that is to look and see what's open in your city and county, and really start looking at the local level. Because, I look at, like, I do staffing anyway for clients and all across the state here and even across out of the state. I look at it like a manufacturing job. I even raise my kids this way. Every single position is extremely important. Without one, the other cannot function. So everywhere from the janitor all the way up to the CEO is equally important in their own right, and it should be respected. So the production can't function without the direction. The management can't function without the production. Local government is so important, because that really kind of sets the tone for where we're going. So again, we really have to concentrate in those areas.
I want to add something here. Go, just let me, we all jump in on this gig. So roll with me, Sonia.
Yeah.
Also understand that we make a lot of assumptions here. We talk so much about global, destruction of the planet global. We do forget the local. Now, we also make the assumption. It's interesting, when I talked to Larry Gerst tonight, he told me one of the tricks in elections, and it isn't that the big things that you see, it's moving an election to an off year or off time. So remember, cities aren't really bound by having their elections in June and December, or June and November. They can move them whenever they want. So some of them, intentionally to keep power, will move it to, like, October 16th, 2023, because they don't want a lot of people to show up. Mm-hmm. So one of the things in Rebuild, as we expand in the 2022 elections and have these pop-ups all over the state, and as you say, well, what can I do in the meantime? Go work the pop-up. Also, don't assume that all elections take place in the same election cycle. Right. In Los Angeles, you do have the city council seats, about 10 that flip every 2 years. But there are town councils which go unfilled. Orange playing a lot of party seats. And those town councils, when I looked at them in just Sherman Oaks the other day, they're literally staggered to fill every 2 months for 2-year terms. There's 10 of them. This is just in Sherman Oaks. And many things are structured like that. So we have this global assumption because of the 1922 article, which I remember reading as a little kid, Oren. And we have these, global things that come in that have impressed our minds that all things must take place in these specific cycles. With Rebuild and working with you, Sony, it's got to stay going all the time. The big stuff, my point is, normally will get people out, but the 50 votes and 100 votes so we can grow from the bottom up takes place all the time. So when you look at things, look at the date that it's taking place. I know it seems a bit strange, but when they talked about the big price for the California election, not many people, or maybe even on this podcast, know there were actually 2 other elections took place the day of the recall itself that were a bunch with it special elections. There's elections that take place all the time.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely.
And so you have to take responsibility and find those offices. You out there also have to help us out by as we reestablish these booths. So I'm going to say we're starting with Eric early for Attorney General, because soon what we're going to do is, not have you buy pop-ups. We're going to get pop-ups up and down the state and add things to it. And working with Sonia, a place for local candidates to go. I've said so many times, one of the joys of the recall to me wasn't just people signing the petitions. It was virtually like the watering hole or pubs for politics. People were gathered. We only had one product, which was the recall. That was the product that everybody gathered for, and they chatted all day long about issues and got excited. So now Oren has ordered me to expand our inventory from the one product to many products. And we're going to have kind of like organically sourced food, I guess. We're going to have organically sourced politics, but it takes place all the time. What Sonia is doing, if you don't know, I don't know how to run for office, 100 votes. I don't like to get out. I live in a small neighborhood. Who cares? The resources are being made available to you. And so everybody watching this, if you're signed up in Rebuild California, sign up to help volunteer. If you're thinking, I don't know what to do, and you're in Orange County or anywhere, contact Sonia. But the key to the recall was people taking action. We have to spread our action far, deep, and wide to take this state back. And importantly, too, make sure that look, if you find a 23 or 24-year-old, and I'm old enough to call them a young kid, they're my kid's age, right? And that person looks dynamic. Hey, feed them into a office with 500 votes, because part of the problem is, again, as I talked to Dr. Gersten, he said, look, the biggest problem is with the big state elections, the candidates don't excite people. We can't get or you talked about water, for example, right, with the school system. We're going to pass and get an initiative on for a really big way to allocate water and water resources. But the reality is, if you live, and I'm going to pick on Lancaster, in a school out in Lancaster, unless there's somebody on the board that can say our school pipes are rusting, we need help, how the hell is the state going to even know that to supply funding? Mm-hmm. Okay, that local voice is critically important, and we have to go back to what the recall did, which is the collective power of the people.
That's right, exactly.
Timothy, wonderful pregame show today, my friend. You got some thoughts on the topics at hand?
Any other topics on hand? Wow, there's a lot of topics.
No, do you have any thoughts on the topics?
Oh, any thoughts on the topics? Well,
of course.
It's the Band-Aid of the title behind some of these bills that are passed. And I came up with an original theme, and also included in a newsletter, this act for schools and safe neighborhoods is to release prisoners. We got to stop this.
You know,
We got to find a
there
way
was
to expose this better.
Yep. That was one of the most deceitful titles for a ballot initiative ever concocted. And that was done by our lovely Vice President Kamala Harris. She came up with the Safe Neighborhoods title, knowing that people are uninformed.
Yeah.
And who the hell isn't going to vote for safe neighborhoods when you don't read beyond the first line, let alone the first paragraph? So that was an automatic.
Right.
Yeah,
I think too, with Rebuild California, you guys are so knowledgeable. I'm so glad to be working with you guys. I think that too, we want to constantly get these messages out to people. Messaging is extremely important. So we really have to capitalize on that, because so many people are uninformed. And when they're informed, guess what happens? They're more motivated to vote. A lot of people just say, I'm too busy for this. A lot of people really are conditioned to say, this is stressful. I don't want to hear about it. It'll work itself out. No, it will not, guys. It took 2.1 million to sign this successful recall, and it will take every single person getting involved and understanding what is happening right before your eyes, because you also have that power to change it just with a strike of the ballpoint pen. Don't use a Sharpie. You use a ballpoint pen. So yeah, and I think that's really important that we keep them informed.
Well, and Orrin made an important comment too, and one of the reasons to work with Eric Early for Attorney General, when you start, we need someone that will stand up to oppose these things. Mm-hmm. And it's important to note, and I started off the show and kind of glossed over the point, saying you can look at how many, I've used this a lot of times, I haven't looked, but look at the Attorney General race. And there's about 12.5 million people voted in the last governor's race. You drop to lieutenant governor, 1 million people less voted. Not for lieutenant governor, just didn't even bother to check the second box. Figure if they couldn't even say Calacas, if they were Democrat, they weren't voting for it. You go down to the attorney general and they said, well, we can't even, Xavier Becerra. Is that a pastry? So even less people voted for that. This thing we have to do is understand. We understand everybody knows senators and Congress people, but they're literally, it is so, to your point, son, I don't know if they're, they're afraid of making a mistake, make a mistake, but at least play, get fouled on. Do something for goodness sake. So it's important that we're focusing on a few of these statewide races so people will participate. It's ground up and top down. But you have a really good point too. The issues are really kind of simple. We have an attorney general like with the Safe Neighborhoods Act. I mean, what a horse beep name for that, right, Orrin? I mean, seriously, but the reality is, if we in the street had said, we the people, and I'm going to blame us and everybody on that call, and at the time in 2014, when I was about 12, we had stepped up and said, this is really what it means. Again, the scary part to me is that only 42% of the people, and probably most of the prisoners' families, I'm guessing, were those people, came out and voted for period on the damn thing. That struck me as absolutely frightening. And Orrin, the LA Times argued with us about, well, the recall, the polarity, it's not the full will of the people. Hey, yahoos, what about some of these elections? Because we're burying the issues. I think you corrected me, Orrin, there's SB 8, 9, 10, the real estate things. We talk about them in numbers. I like what that video you did, Tim, and the Prop 13 thing, explaining what it was. But we have to start explaining these as concepts. It's critically important. Newsom, again, I said this was a once-in-a-lifetime politician because he's such an idiot that, it's kind of like he did something against everybody. But many of these issues, people don't feel, to your point, Sonia, affect them. Mm-hmm. And we have to get the word out on those. And we have to get politicians with personalities that care, they get people engaged and even understand how these issues affect their local community.
Right. And you're right. To go to that point, these candidates that that especially the ones that I've met, it's really important that they are able to resonate with the community, because when it gives people hope, and it does give them that motivation to get out there and say, you know what, I can get behind this guy. I think that this is going to be good. And they really resonate with that individual. It's so important to have that type of synergy and really connect with their voters. So I agree with you. And if they're kind of like, hey, not that exciting for whatever reason, you know what, there's another position. We have a lot of other positions they can run for. I'm one of those that I will never slander a candidate, disrespect a candidate. It's like I look at a baseball team and 50 people want to be a catcher. Well, there's only going to be one catcher and maybe, one in the rears. But look at all the other fabulous positions that they can have on the field. So that's kind of one of the things that I do too. I concentrate, I listen to these candidates, see where they are, where they came from, what do they identify with. And sometimes I'll say, hey, let's move over here. And they're like, you know what, that works. I go, you bet it does. So.
And help with the messaging was what I was driving at too. People don't always know how to express it as simple messaging, which we did in the recall. Listen, everybody out there, again, still sign up to volunteer. We will be opening pop-ups up and down the state, starting with Eric Early and kind of stocking the store with other things, which are coming sooner than you think.
Good.
Pick your passion, be it an issue or your community or the school board that you don't like, or if you don't like the trees in the park, that tree that's a bird in there that always is doing something on me, join the park commission, okay? I went into the library and they hit me with an overdue fine. If it ticks you off, run for the library board. We still are. Oren, did I miss anything today when I was out? Are we still a democracy?
No, we're close.
Okay.
It's on the edge. It's on the verge.
It's on the verge. And to keep it off the verge, we still literally have a lot of rights on the local level.
Yeah.
And it's important to note that the state of California is trying to take those local rights away. That's a lot of what this is about.
Yeah.
Okay. And what we sure ask a lot of our city council people, sometimes Democrat or Republican, quite honestly. It's like, oh, when the 6 of you mind defending this community with 100,000 people, well, good luck to you. We'll see you in 4 years, right? Against a state with a $272 billion budget. So stand with, and an office will give you a voice and
So
an
to your
issue.
point, Mike, that you said they're trying to take these freedoms away from us, as far as self-governance goes, and
Yeah.
the ability to bring petitions to the table and all that good stuff. Governor Newsom would have had an opportunity to sign into law a bill that would eliminate the use of professional paid circulators during a petition drive. Okay. What they realize is that they need them just as badly as we do, because they put as many, initiatives on the ballot as anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And if not more, they're, the last initiatives that were put up on the ballot this last go around, attacking, Prop 19, attacking property taxes and things like that. We put forward Prop 22, they put up Prop 19 and Prop 13. And, so they need them just as badly as we do. They don't want us to have the ability to utilize that resource. They want desperately to get rid of it, but they know it's a powerful tool. Well, we realize just how powerful it is. And from our side, the Republicans aren't utilizing it as effectively as it can be done. So it's time for the people to step up and fill that void. That's it. And that's all for me tonight, folks.
I got one question for you, Oren. One question for the masses before I forget. Because remember, I read that article in 1922. When do you think the rebuilt site will be up?
I would say early next week.
Okay. In the meantime, anybody out there, go to Eric Early's site, go to the recall site, but we will have the rebuild site up. We're simply, again, in the initiative to change petitions online. I see that question. That's probably not going to happen because they got more computers than we do. I want to answer that question from Richard. The reality is what we're doing, we're rebranding. We're already out there slightly rebranded altogether. Sonia, anything you want to add before we kick you
Yeah, I
off
wanted
the
to
air?
add one more thing. People that have never ran before, maybe even ran once and are a little gun shy. A lot of times this happens that, you know, they feel attacked by people, you know, all of a sudden they're not liked where they were once before, or whatever the case may be. I just want to let you know, even coming to me, we're not going to just feed you out there to the wolves. We do have training as well that will be involved, and we'll give you all the tools that you need, and when you feel comfortable to get out there. And like what Mike Netter said, messaging is important. We'll hone in on who you are. We'll get your message out there, and also you'll be able to resonate with the community, what their voice is and what their concerns are, and that will all be combined together. And it'll be very authentic because we want to represent the true individual that is running. So training is available, just so you know. We have everything from top to bottom. We're going to get you in there.
I love it.
Remember, anything can be done because Orrin and I went through such extensive training before starting the recall.
Mhm.
Oh, wait, we didn't. So the reality is this, okay? You've got more resources than we have available because Orrin and I were a couple political hicks and probably still are. But the passion and belief that you accomplished something, and I can't repeat everything I said on a call yesterday, but it was a rant, and I'll leave it alone at that. Okay. We do this because we care. And if you're out there tonight listening to this and you care, do something. We are simply equipping people in the state of California with the tools to do something. So get out there and march with us. And marching means, again, signing up to volunteer, joining the tents, running for office, educating yourself. Use DuckDuckGo, use Google, use a carrier pigeon. I don't care. Get educated and make sure, understand the process of democracy is not a snapshot in time. It's a continuum that takes place all the time. And that note, God bless, and we will talk to you next week.
Tim, thanks for your support in the behind the scenes, my friend. God bless. Sonia, thanks for joining us.
Thank
God
you.
bless. Have a good night, all.
Good night.